If you are a business or department that struggles with email overwhelm and service demand, this video is for you. I've built an automation that I'm going to give you entirely for free that will effectively build an AI-powered service desk from your inbox. If you struggle with email overwhelm and just relentless kind of questions and queries and complaints into your inbox, this is going to radically transform your workflow, save you huge amounts of time by analyzing, scanning, and determining what to do with every single email, then outlining actions, drafting responses, and then updating that in real time. So if that's of interest, then stick around as we get into the video. Okay, so what do we have here? So we're using make.com. You don't have to use Make, but it's an automation platform that is effectively going to do a lot of this for us. This is the kind of end state scenario. Before I go into detail about how it actually works, I want to say a few things. Number one, you don't have to use Make. This would work for anywhere where you're able to use automation. And a lot of the modules you may see, you're thinking, well, I don't use that software, I don't use that platform. It's absolutely fine. As we come into look at it, everything here is replaceable with software or platform of your choice. But the logic is really what I want you to understand. Obviously, if you do want to use it exactly as is, you can download it and use it again for free. Now, before I go into the technical detail about how this works, I always like to start with thinking conceptually about what is happening here. So before I built that, I started with a process map that I mapped out, and I just tried to replicate if I was a service desk or if I was a customer agent answering calls or taking emails on behalf of a department or a team or a business, how that usually go. Now, in this case, and we're focusing on emails, let's just kind of have a look at what this workflow would most likely tend to involve. You would receive the email, then you would, I know it sounds obvious, you'd read the email. Now, what is less obvious is that there will be a number of intuitive steps that are happening that maybe you're not even aware of that are happening, that are worth calling out if we're going to build this out using automation. One is, whenever you read an email, in business, you're making a decision. Does this relate to an existing conversation or issue, or is this a new and unrelated query? And that's going to be really important in terms of the way this goes. Then you're going to obviously be recalling everything you know contextually about your company to answer that question. If someone says, can I use the XYZ at 7 p.m. and the building closes at 5 p.m. Well, how do you know that? It's important to call that out because this is the information we're going to have to feed into the system. We're going to feed in company information in terms of just your SOPs, your knowledge base, because then that's going to ensure that it's giving a quality of output that is nuanced, that is sophisticated, that is reflective of an actual of a human, rather than just generic, AI. Then, if you determine that actually this seems related to something that we've handled already, well, then you're going to scan and you're going to look that up against existing tickets. So maybe you've got a CRM, a customer relationship management platform. Maybe you just got your inbox and you'll just run a search, issue in your inbox. But you'll find the way to think, does this relate to something that already exists? And then once you've kind of made that decision, you're going to go one of two ways. If it is an existing query, well, you're obviously going to work with the information you already have on the issue or topic to kind of draft a response, to update any actions, and then to whether you would draft any notes or update that ticket in your CRM. And that's going to be fairly simple. Now, if you determine that actually this is a brand new issue that we need to handle, then again, if you're using a CRM, you're going to have to create a ticket. You then need to kind of assign responsibility. That would probably just be to yourself if you're a one-man band. But if you're in a bigger company, you've got to determine who is going to handle this. And then you've got to get back to the customer, you've got to action and escalate any issues, and then you can close and move on to the next task. Now, the issue is, even if you're dealing with a task or issue that is one that you've dealt with 1,000 times, it's not similar enough where you can just copy and paste the whole thing. Yes, you can probably pull bits from here or there, but you're probably finding that you're having to spend more time than you would like responding to really kind of nitty-gritty small points. And I know, as someone that's been a comms lead in the past, I've spent sometimes whole days just replying to people rather than being able to kind of push on and deal with the issue. So this is what we want to free up and help automate. So this is how the workflow would work. Hopefully that all makes sense. So now it will make a lot more sense when I now walk through how I've actually built this automation in practice. Okay, so as they say, proof is often better than promise. So rather than jumping straight into the technical details of how this works, let's just send some example emails to see the results that we would get, and then we can go from there. So I'm going to run this scenario. This scenario is connected to this inbox here, which is waiting. So when a new email lands here, it will trigger the scenario, and then we can see what happens from there. So let's wait for new data. Now, I could obviously open up another one of my email accounts and start sending emails, but I'm using this new other scenario to send emails because it allows me to mimic sending from different names. If obviously all the emails just come from Jeffrey, that's not very innovative or helpful to test how it handles data from different people. So I've got this example of this scenario here where all I'm going to do is create a made up email, and I'm going to change the sender name, and that is what it's going to identify as the person sending the email. So let's come up with an example for, again, remember that the scenario is trained to handle building management queries. It's obviously easily changeable to anything. So let's say I want to move office. So I'm a tenant in the building and I want to move office move. Hi there. We recently, let's say, moved into office 3 on the to move into that office. Okay, so office move, and then I can just make up a name here. So let's say this is coming from Phil Brown. Great, I'm going to run that. Okay, so what should happen is it's landed here in my inbox, which is great, which is separate to the inbox it's sending from. And now if I go to my scenario, you'll notice that it's been triggered. So what we can start to see what's happening already. It's caught the email. If I go here, yeah, you can see that it's caught the email. And now it's running the scenario. And it's determined that there's no match either by name or ticket ID, obviously because we didn't give a ticket ID. And so it's generating a new email. And let's just see, so it should all be done. Now, this should disappear. So currently this should move in the next few seconds, and we should expect to see a draft appear. Let's just give it another 5 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, okay, it's gone. And then if we go to drafts, yeah, we can see that the drafted email has come in. Hi Phil, thanks for reaching out to us. We appreciate you. We'll check the availability and improve the process for moving and update as soon as possible. Could you confirm how many? Yeah, so it's drafted a pretty good email response, which I think is really good. Now that's not all it's done. That's just one of the outputs it's created. It's also done a lot more internal work, which we can have a look at. So if we go back to the scenario, we can see a few of the results actually. We can, if we go to, let's go to this module here, which has done most of the work really. And it has given us, so it's drafted the response. It's done in HTML because that's what Gmail can read. That's what I've asked it to do. It's also then provided some actions for this team. Check current occupancy status and lease terms of Office 5 to confirm availability. Consult with management for approval on the Office, blah, 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 blah. Request additional details and then provide a response. So yeah, pretty good. And then it's also created some notes about the whole transaction, and all of that has been updated in the CRM here. And we can just see that again, my CRM is not clean. I've done it in Google Sheets, so it does look pretty ugly. This will obviously look much neater if you were using a dedicated CRM platform, but you can see all the data's been moved there. It's generated a ticket ID. It's come up with a task name, and it's got the actions, the notes, the draft email, and it's also assigned it. Now I'm going to cover how it's done this, but it's assigned someone from the team to handle the ticket. It has categorized the email as well, which is really important for determining what folder to move it to. It's also set a due date, and I'm going to explain all of that and how it's done all of that. And then it's just captured all of the information. Phil Brown, obviously all the emails are coming from my email address, so that's why this is responding more to the sender name, but you would typically use the address. And yeah, so you can see, so that's pretty good. And you know, in a nicer looking CRM, that'll look beautiful. But even in this, it's working really, really well. Okay, let's do a different example. This time, we want to see whether it can pick up an email that is in the system. So I'll tell you what, why don't we actually follow up on this exact email, and hopefully this time it should go a different way rather than creating a new task. So if we go back to this, so let's just go back to this scenario. Let's run it again, wait for new data. Now let's send another email. This is so still from Phil, but this time let's just talk about something. Let's just follow up. So hi there, just checking if any updates are of Office 5. If you could let me know ASAP. Thanks. And now let's send that. So we're going to save. We're going to save that. Oh yeah, let's change the subject line as well, because you know, let's not make it too easy for it. So let's say follow up. Let's just put follow up, which again is not the most helpful subject line, but a lot of, you know, customer behavior isn't always the most helpful, and we want to create an intuitive system that can respond to that. So let's just put follow up, save, and now let's run that. Okay, and so what we're going to see, obviously in the inbox, it's landed follow up, and now we can just see what is happening in the automation. What we want to see is we want it to not go via this route, no match. We want it to identify that there's been a sender, so go here, but then actually go down here instead, which it has. Great, so we can see it's going down that route, which means that it's determined that this is an existing ticket. Now I've built in some steps here that don't just run the automation, but also provide and explain the logic as to why it's making the decision that it's made. And I want to talk through some of that first. So a couple examples. So let's look at the result that's given us first, and then we can do that. So make sure we focus. Okay, great. So let's look at the what's written. So updated notes. Yeah, okay, that's fine. Updated actions. It's given some simple actions. Again, nothing complex because it's already live. And then draft response, which would probably be to see. Let's just see it in drafts here. Okay, still taking a bit of time. There we go. It should be there now. Drafts. There we go. Okay, great. So, okay, too much going on. Which is the one that we want? Let's close both of these. Sorry, I'm a bit confused. This one here. Hi Phil, thanks for reaching out. I appreciate your patience while we look into this. It's currently verifying. Okay, so it's just given a nice holding response. So that's absolutely fine. And this time, because it's been assigned to Sally previously, it's already kind of given it to Sally. That's fine. Why did it do this? How did it know to send it that way? So here at this router, it determined that obviously, if we just hover over this one, no, because how did it determine to do that? So obviously, because there was a sender match, it determined that there was no existing ticket, and it had found the name on the system. Then what it has to then do is determine, is this ticket on the system, is this ticket related to any other tickets by the same name on the system? So that's why it would have gone through here, and it would have kind of pulled all that out. Match found 92%, so it says here, and the reasoning: the new email references the availability of the Office 5, which closely aligns with existing. Yeah, so it reckons that it's an absolute match, and so then it sent it down this filter here. Again, in the next part of this video, I'll go through in very close detail every module so you can see exactly how this has been done, but that's exactly what we want to see. Now let's do one more email from Phil, but this time on a completely different issue, and let's hopefully see that it creates a new task. So I'm going to run this scenario. I'm going to press run, wait for new data. We're going to change this and we're going to delete all this, and let's just say laptop lost. Dear team, I've lost my laptop. I've lost my laptop. Has it been handed in? Again, I'm writing very simple emails for time, but this has been built to handle if someone sends in an absolute essay, it's going to scan for the information that matters most, and it will produce the exact same result. So let's do that. No, that's G is me. So what's Phil? Phil will be, let's say he signs off P, and then yeah, let's save that. Let's run that, and let's see what happens. So again, inbox. So also what we're seeing as well is that where are the emails going for the other ones? Because of this scenario, in the scenario, we have this function here which says move the email. That will basically, there is a function earlier on which will determine the category that the email applies to, and then move it to that folder. So we're getting some inbox management as well, which is great. Okay, perfect. So it's moved down where you want it to. It's gone down this column, this row here, which means that it recognizes that there's a sender name, but it does not think there's a match. And let's just see the reasoning that it's given us for why it thinks that. Result, match, no match, 10%. The new email concerns a lost laptop, whereas the existing ticket relates to an office relocation. There is no contextual or topical similarity between the two. Really happy with that. And so what it's done is it's created a new ticket on the CRM here, obviously also assigned, related to Phil, and it would have assigned that again to a member of the team there. So really happy with how that's working. And then just the last example I want to give, let's see whether it can just identify a ticket match directly without having to scan name. So for that, we can either keep with Phil or we can just use someone else. So let's not use any name on the system. Let's go and find a ticket at random. Okay, so ticket 802401, which relates to a noise dispute mediation request. I'm gonna copy that. And then let's just run the scenario again. This will be the last example we give. Could do this all day. Wait for new data. Now let's run this test here. Okay, so I keep getting in the way. I keep moving my face out of the way. All right, so again, I'm not going to put any similarity in the title because I don't want to make it too easy for it. Let's just say, again, something really vague that you would get from people that send emails. Any update, and let's just say, actually no, I suppose this is we're using the ticket. So any update on ticket, and I'm not even going to give any context as to what that's about. Let's just say, hi there, any update this. Yeah, cool. Let's just see what it does, and let's change that to someone else. So I could use obviously the name of the person who sent the email originally, but we're not going to do that. Now, obviously, if you don't want, let's say for example, a ticket was raised by a lady called Laura, and then Bob chases up that ticket. If you want to have security protocol that ensures that then both the ticket but also the email or name has to match, you can build that in there. In this case, I've not done that, so anyone could theoretically follow up on any ticket and get an update on it. But that is obviously all changeable. So I'm just going to put lay rubbish for names today. Gomez cannot type and cannot think of names. Wouldn't that be normally with an I anyway? Okay, there we go. So let's say save, and now let's run that, and then we're just gonna wait. So while that's loading, so we're expecting that to immediately identify the ticket and go down this one here. Yeah, you can see how this obviously would save so much time. Obviously, there are bits that you need to dial in so that it's relevant for your business video, but it's really intuitive and working exactly as we would want it to. So let's just look at the results and then we can look at everything else. It has come up. Sorry, I've obviously put that there. So let's go to converted email text and look it up. This is what the email has come up with. Hi Layla, thanks for reaching out. We're still working on the issue reported on the ticket regarding We've acknowledged the request and gathered further details for Chris Martinez. That's who it was originally assigned to, or who originally sent the request, and it's given an update. Perfect. Okay, so because the due date is not yet, I'm recording this on 21st February. It's forward. It's if that due date was out of date, I imagine it will be apologetic. Great, perfect. I like that. And then any other actions as well, we can see to the draft response, updated the notes, great, and then no updated actions, which is good. So that's really helpful because sometimes somebody can send a chaser, but we don't want it to create actions for the sake of it. So in the prompt, I've put in there to say, look, don't generate actions unnecessarily. If there's nothing to update on action-wise, then don't provide an update. Let's not create more work than we need to. Really helpful. And the way it's done that, obviously, it's found obviously that there's a match in ticket ID, and so it's gone there. So there's not a scenario where it will go down multiple. It will only go down one because of how it's coded. And so look, this is working really well. You can see obviously how you'll get all your data in your CRM. You would obviously still have a clean inbox. You would have everything naturally go to the folders you want them to, and then you have some drafts that you could literally pop in there and just press send or tweak, but already kind of done for you, so saving so much time. So without further ado, I think now we're just going to get into the part where I'm just going to go through step by step exactly how I built this and how you could implement this in your business. Again, the automation itself, the blueprint, is entirely free to download. So let's get into that. Okay, so before we get into going through this in detail, I just want to give some reassurance that you may, as we go along, see some platforms or software that you currently don't use, or maybe you use alternatives. Absolutely everything here is replaceable. I've tried to design it in a way where there's nothing that is dependent. Even where you see, for example, AI, obviously I'm using ChatGPT as the language learning model that's doing the AI work. There's a cost there. You can use Google Gemini, which I believe is free. You can use DeepSeek. You can use any kind of equivalent, but any LLM where you can have API access. I will also want to make this point now because I'm sure it will come up, which is, look, if you're looking to implement AI at scale in your business, you obviously don't want to be sending data anywhere. The move, which you're probably seeing more and more spoken of, is hosting this entirely on your servers locally, so data is not going anywhere. That's beyond the scope of this video, but that's hopefully something we can cover in future videos. If there's something you'd be interested in, please do let me know. So it starts with obviously a webhook. Now, you don't have to use a webhook. How a webhook works, so the alternative is you could use like an email module that would post a request. And how that would work is, so if I was to use this module here, add a module, let's say I'll go to either email or Gmail and watch emails. Now this looks very similar. It's going to watch emails, but it's actually going to work a bit differently. How it's going to work is it's going to send a request every however long you set. So it could be once an hour, once every 15 minutes, once a minute, to see whether there have been any new emails and collect them and send them back. Now, as you can imagine, that is every time it does that, it counts for an operation, and that adds up. The alternative, and the reason I use a webhook, is that rather than, for example, if this is a case of you calling up the shop every 5 minutes saying, is my takeaway ready? Is my takeaway ready? Is my takeaway ready? A webhook is saying, hey, here's my number. When it's ready, you call me instantly. And so it puts the onus on the where the data source is to send that information once it's ready. So that's why I've used that. I'm just going to delete that. So I'm not going to treat this as a make tutorial. I'm going to assume that there's some working knowledge of automation already. We can do that probably in another video, but I'll just run through obviously how it works. So I've got a webhook that's connected to my inbox. I've then obviously got a little delay. Now you may be thinking, well, why do I need if I get all the data here, so obviously this provides all of the information about that email. Obviously they're coming from my other email address. That's why they all say Jeffrey, my client pipeline. But then got another email that then retrieves seemingly the same data. Now the reason I've done that is for one simple reason, that the one thing you don't get from a webhook or from a mailhook is something called the UID, which is the unique ID of an email. And that's necessary if you want to do things like you want to move the email around later on, or you want to access the folder to send or create drafts. So that's why I've had to, it feels like a duplication, but have a get emails function, and it has this query here. And what this does is it pulls all the information from the original, from the email that's come from the webhook, but it also finds the unique ID as well, which is going to be really helpful later on. Just a bit of simple data sorting. Typically, obviously, when an email comes in, so as you can see here, if we go back to it here, or just let's say here, send Leila Gomez, a lot of CRMs want to separate first and last name, and so I've just got a simple function that does that, and so it's just going to separate the first and last name. So in that case here, it gives us, it separates that out. Now this is a really important step. You don't have to use Google Docs. You can use another data source, but I just find that using a Word doc of some kind and just dumping text in here is the best approach. What this is doing is to ensure that that the end results aren't just going to be generic AI slop, or worst case, just hallucinations of writing things that aren't true. This is where input really matters. And you're going to give it, imagine the information you would give to a trainee on their first day or during their training, and say, hey, this is what you need to use to make decisions about anything really. These are our opening hours. This is how we handle this. This is how we handle that. Essentially your standard operating procedures, your SOPs, your knowledge base. You can just pour in all that data here. And so what I've put here is I've got this Word doc where I've used ChatGPT, but again, pretending that I'm a building management team, I've asked it to generate some SOPs about how I would handle electrical issues, lift issues, key card access, cleaning management, not my expertise at all. So just some general stuff. Because then what you're going to find is that later on in the generation of notes, of actions, of emails, it's going to refer to that to inform what to do. And this is where it's going to sound a lot more like your company, like a human in your company, than just anything generic. There's nothing helpful about someone getting generic content from a chatbot that doesn't actually answer the question. Now, this is going to really ensure that you're answering their question most of the time. Then we're using AI really simply here just to search the email for the ticket number. It's not always obviously going to be in one place or another. Sometimes it'll be in a subject line, sometimes in the email, and it's going to give us a couple outputs. Is there a ticket? Has a ticket been found? True or false? The email ticket number, if found, and then the reasoning. And so what this looks like, if I open it up, so I didn't open up this one here. So this is simply, very, very simply, when it's pulling from the SOPs, it's literally just linked to this document on the Google Drive, and nothing more. For searching for the ticket number, I've given it a prompt. Now, I tried to, obviously, you can use different models of ChatGPT. I tried it on 3.5, and sometimes it wouldn't find the data when it was there. So I just find that using the latest just ensures the best results. And it's a really simple prompt. Please search the email to see if ticket number is present. Search for ticket numbers in the format ticket ... So now this is where you would put in if you have a kind of standard ticket number, again, if you have a CRM, then this is what you would use. If you don't, then it wouldn't be able to identify by ticket number. So this is where, it could even be something simple like 001, 002, 003, whatever that format is, that's where you would kind of put that in there. I've asked for it to give me 3 outputs. Tell me if the ticket number has been found, provide the number if found, and then state reasoning. I always want to understand how it's got to its logic. Please do not generate ticket number if you do not find one. No hallucinating, please. And then with all of my outputs, I want it in JSON just because it allows me to structure that later on really helpfully. I don't just want simple text. And then this is obviously telling exactly what I'm going to give you. I'm going to give you the subject, the email subject. I'm going to give you the email text. And then I want you to look for ticket prefix like this. And that ticket pattern essentially means it's going to be a ticket followed by some numbers. And then again, this is what this assistant means this is the result I want. I want true or false. I want, the ticket ID, and I want the reasoning. Categorize. So this, again, it's a fairly simple AI prompt here. We're not doing anything too complex. I just want two things. I want to know whether this requires an action or not. Remember, a lot of emails you'll get will be very trivial. It could be someone just saying, hey, thanks, all good. Or it could be someone saying something that doesn't need a response. So I want it to determine, does this need a response or not? And then secondly, I want it to categorize it. And I've chosen these categories based on, again, the SOPs that I've created and what I think a building management department would care about. But you would change this to however you would organize your inbox or your folders. What are the categories of topics depending on that, on the service that you provide? That's what you would do. Always worth having an other as well. And then in your inbox, you're going to create folders that match. I mean, it has to be exactly these titles here. So facilities and maintenance requests. There's a matching label for Gmail or folder that has the same name, because it's going to categorize it, and that then means when I then move it later on, it can match the name assigned to a name of a folder. Again, I've asked it refer to the SOPs and company information to inform your decision making, and so I've given it the email subject, email body, email date, and then the department SOPs. And then what I wanted to tell me very simply is what the categorization is and whether an action is required. I won't get into detail about everything else, but you can see here I've done things like JSON object, parse JSON. That's just really important for the structure and the output, and ensures that I can dynamically map the results in later steps. Then we move on to, so we can see all these three here as a combined collective effort. Again, if I just go back to this example here, you would at some point, obviously, if you determine that this may relate to an existing issue, you're going to scan those tickets. You're going to scan your CRM to look it up and see, is this already on the system? Now, a very simple automation will look for a ticket. If there's no ticket number, then it's going to create a new ticket. That's probably how 90% of ticket systems would work. Now, we want something a bit more intelligent, so we want it to do a bit more work than that. So we're going to ask it to pull up the CRM, but rather than pull up dozens and dozens or hundreds or thousands of results, depending on how much data you have in there, we're going to immediately filter it along two criteria. Either a ticket number, if it's been found. So if a ticket number exists and that ticket number is equal to one identified here, pull up all of those, there wouldn't be multiple rows with the same ticket number, so it'll pull up that ticket. Or if it finds a matching name. Now I've done name because I have to use sender name rather than sender email. You would probably change this to sender email, and it'll pull up all of the tickets from that email address as well. And then you'll see this a few times, an array aggregator. The simplest way I can describe this is I have had absolute chaos in make.com in recent months when it comes to just bundles of data. So if you have several bundles in make.com, it will create several outputs. So when you look up a database and you search rows, and let's say it pulls 10 rows, it is now going to multiply the effort 10 times and run 10 rows. That is absolute chaos. We only want one row at all times. Otherwise, we're going to end up with it generating multiple emails from one email, which would be absolute carnage. And so how an array aggregator works is basically the equivalent of this. You see this filing cabinet here. if this CRM search step is me opening the filing cabinet and picking out the relevant bits of data, the array aggregator is me closing the cabinet after the lookup has been done, because I always want to I do not want loads of data flying around. So you want to open it up and then you want to close it back up again. That's the way I can describe it. So this acts as an iterator in official terms, and this is going to basically bundle it back up as an aggregator. Then I'm just going to collect some of that data. So this is how I want to be able to collect all of the ticket IDs, collect all of the names. I don't actually need the notes here. That was from, I can actually delete that. That's not needed anymore. So I'm going to collect all the names and all of the IDs. And what I'm going to do here is this row here, which will find an existing matching ID, how it works is the filter I've got here is, let me actually open up the filter. So it will go down a matching ID if it determines that the ticket the yesterday ticket has been found, and the collection of ticket numbers on the system contains the ticket number, because someone could cite a ticket number that doesn't actually relate to anything, and so that's not helpful. We need to know that the system has that ticket number, and if it does that, then it's going to find that and it's going to be a matching ID. Contrastingly, this one here, this is obviously, if it finds nothing, then it will create a new ticket. But this middle row here is essentially a maybe, where it has found, it knows that, okay, there's not a ticket number. However, within the names on the system, it identifies that there's a match with the name in the email. Now again, I don't collect names. You would probably do collect email addresses. There's a match. And so we want to determine, let's say Bob has 3 tickets on the system, and now Bob is sending another email. Is the email that he is sending related to any of the tickets on the system? And so how it's going to determine that, it's going to pass it through here. Now, the reason you do need to use an iterator, and again, an iterator can also be when you look at rows on a database, but you can then manually do that as well. You need to do that because you can't actually, going back to my example here, I can't assess the data when it's inside the filing cabinet. In order to assess the data within, I need to open it up. So what this is going to do, this iterator is basically going to just unbundle all of those tickets, and then we're going to use ChatGPT or an equivalent language learning model, and we've given it the following prompt. We're going to say to it, hi, sorry to jump in. I'm just in the edit of this video and I realized I didn't actually show you the prompt itself of this module. So let me just open it up. Okay, so yeah, the structure for kind of most of my OpenAI modules is as always just kind of you know setting the context. So this doesn't tend to change much. So message 2. So this is the prompt. So the prompt is probably a bit wordier than it needs to be, but I just wanted to be thorough and avoid any room for doubt. So essentially what I'm saying is, look, take the email, read and scan the email, and then take all the information in the ticket, and I want you to kind of analyze whether there's any similarity in the context. Look at the subject lines, the task names, based on what I give you, which we'll look at below, and then take the subject line and the body of the email to kind of do some analysis. And then provide the following. Tell me the ticket number that you're obviously looking at that time, and tell me whether a match or no match, or match found, no match. And I also want a percentage score, and that's going to be really important because later on I'm going to need to rank them and pick out the top one. That's how we kind of move forward in the scenario, whether or not it's a match or not. And then we get into the actual input. So yeah, I'll hand you back over to the other Jeffrey. Yeah, so we've given it the email, the subject and the text, and then we're giving it information from tickets on the system, the task name, the original message that was recorded, and then the summarized notes. And we're saying, is there any correlation between this new email and any of these tickets by the same person. And obviously all this data here comes from the various kind of rows in my CRM. Okay, great. And then we want the following thing. We want, if there is a match, well, whether there's a match or not, we want it to tell us the ticket number. We want it to tell us match found or no match found. We then want a percentage score. And this is important because sometimes it might determine that there are 2 tickets that have a match. It shouldn't do that. Very rarely it might do that if someone has 2 very closely related issues. Now, if it does that, it means that it's going to update both of those tickets, and then we've just got 2 outputs running, and we do not want that. At any point, we only want 1 output running through the system, 1 scenario at work. And so we're going to basically prioritize it by highest score, and we're just going to select the highest scoring one. And then again, we want reasoning. And then again, we want to then close the file after we've done that. Close the filing cabinet. Then this is going to essentially it's going to sort the results. So let's say Bob, his 3 tickets, and it says the first one 95% match, pretty confident, and then the next 2 are like 50% and 20%. So we'll sort it in order, and then it's going to take the top match, and that's what it's going to pass through the system. Now, it could be that none of them are matches. So let's say, for example, the matches are 40%, 20%, and 10%, and they're all no match, no match, no match. We still need data to work with, so it's going to take the best result, 40%. But if it's obviously a no match, it will send it this way, and it will then create a new ticket. And if it's a match, it will send it this way, and it will update an existing ticket. And as we can see here, so there's a bit more work it has to do based on if there's a sender match, but there are essentially two lines of activity: create a new ticket or update existing ticket. So now let's look at, if we're going to update an existing ticket, how does that work? So the first thing that's going to happen is we are going to iterate it. Now you'll notice that we're not going to close it again after here, because at this point only one would have come. Well, so at this point, so it's going to iterate and give us all 3 tickets, but it will select the best match. So here is where it says, hey, ticket 456 is the best match, or whatever it is. And so only ticket 456, only one ticket can pass through here. So this is why we don't need to close the file again, because there's only one file now that's been selected. I hope that makes sense. I know that I feel like I haven't explained that part very well. Any questions, please put it in the comments, and I will be more than happy to respond. And now it's going to draft a response in line with that. So again, these 2 rows are the same, this one and this one. So I'll just draft a new ticket. I've said to it, please read the new email. This relates to an existing ticket on the system. So we know that if it's come down this route, it relates to an existing ticket. I'm going to give you both the content of the email and the information on the system, and then also familiarize yourself with the department SOPs. And then please can you draft a polite, friendly, I'm not going to go on, yeah, you can all read. I like this bit here that I've added. That sounds a bit pretentious. If there are no appropriate actions to outline, then do not feel a need to include any. I do not want it generating work for the sake of work. Secondly, basically provide actions or notes for the team. And then thirdly, summarize. Please use UK spelling and include paragraph spacing for both the email and the notes. I've actually overwritten, well, no, yeah, that's true. But then I've also asked it to format the notes as for the email in HTML. That's going to be important for sending it to Gmail. So if we didn't have this step in here, when you open up the draft in Gmail, it will all be collapsed, and that it just looks a bit rubbish. And so I want a version where it has all kind of HTML marks, so you can read that as Gmail. Please respond JSON only. Okay, great. And then this step here is basically updated action, updated notes. Now the problem is, if you just, okay, so let's run, let's look at this result here. So here we've got updated actions, or in that case none, and updated notes. Now, if we just updated the notes in the CRM with the notes from here, it will effectively replace old notes and old actions, which isn't really what we want. We want it to add to existing notes, append rather than replace. And because, again, you may be using a smart CRM where it can do that no problem, because I'm using plain old Gmail, I need to create another step where effectively I'm going to ask it to take the old actions, then take the new actions, add them together, and then the output of that is what I'm then going to send there. So it's going to replace the old actions and the old notes with the new output of old actions and new actions, old notes and new notes, if that makes sense. I then got convert HTML to text. So this is where now I know I asked the AI to give me HTML, which is perfect for Gmail. However, if I did that in the Google, in your CRM, all you would see is this P, Layla, P, all that stuff, which isn't necessarily helpful. So I've just got a little kind of conversion here, and what that does is it takes all that and it formats it properly and sends that there. So just to make it easy for the customer agent or the person handling it to know what's in the CRM. Create the draft. So let's look at updated row. So obviously in the updated row, we don't want to update everything. A lot of the information will be relevant as is, but we're going to identify the row number, and then we're going to update the action, update the notes, and then update the text. Everything else I think can kind of stay as is. And yeah, so that explains that, and it's the same for there. If it's going to create a new task, it has to do a bit more work. It's a bit more interesting actually. This took me a bit more time to figure out, but hopefully it's of value. So what you'll notice here, it's got a no action needed for a new task. We don't have one for an existing one. The reason I've done this, and you can obviously change this, but I've determined that if someone is responding to an existing ticketing system, no matter how trivial, just for management, I'd want to track and capture that. Even if they're saying, thanks, great, love it, I'd want to be able to capture that so it's on the system, just so you have, what's the words? I can't, the words escape me, but you've got all the information. The word has escaped me. Okay, so, but however, for a new task, if something's really trivial or not relevant to your team, then again, if we go back to this module here, we asked it to tell it to do two things. So obviously, we asked it to categorize, but also to determine action required, yes or no. So when it says no, we've then got a filter here, which means that only put through if the action required is yes into the system, and then everything else as a fallback. So fallback just means if not that, then do the other thing. Well, then it will just move the email and it won't do anything else. So if action is required, now if you think about this, we don't want to create the response yet without having a ticket ID. If you think about when you receive tickets, the first thing you have in the subject line is the ID number, because you need to know that. So we need to generate information first before we can do that. Now, we can't generate a ticket. Now, this is because of how I built this CRM, where basically it's not complex, but I've used a little bit of app script. I just asked ChatGPT how to do this. I said, ChatGPT, how do I do it such that if I create a new line, it generates the ticket number in the format that I want? And it gave me some code for apps. So it's going to generate a task name. And how it's going to do that, so once we determine that, okay, actions required, we've got a new ticket here. This is where I've used 3.5. I think this is a very simple task. And all I've said to it is read the email and provide a task name, no more than 6 words. I don't want War and Peace on this. And that'll be the ticket name. And then we then can add that ticket. So then we're then going to add that ticket to a new row. And then again, the only kind of clever bit about the CRM is that when a new row is generated, it's going to generate a ticket number for me, and it takes about a second or two. And so as a result, I've just got a time delay of 5 seconds, which is probably a bit generous. You can probably do it in 2 or 3. So wait 5 seconds and then go back and then retrieve. Okay, so I'll give you an example. So I've got something here where if I type in hello, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Don't embarrass me. Okay, here we go. It's generated a ticket number. So it's probably safer if I made that 10 seconds. It's then going to wait a few seconds and then retrieve that ID. So it's going to find that cell. And then now we can draft the email, because now we have a task name and we have an ID number. So I think hopefully that makes sense. But that is the logic which I thought would just give the best possible result. I need to read the email. So it's been determined that it needs an action. So treat this seriously. Use obviously all the information provided. Same sorts of kind of prompting here. Now with the other email in the existing ticket, because there's already an assignee, I just allowed it to pull from the name of who has been assigned. So if it's been assigned to Jim, then it'll be signed off by Jim. Now you can obviously change that. In this case, it hasn't been assigned yet. Now you, if you wanted to, could probably assign it first and then create the email so that it has the name included. But I don't like that way around. If I was doing this, I'd probably, because I'm not sure yet how I would assign it, I'd probably assign it based on work levels and different things like that. So it's just gonna create a draft email, doesn't have a name from yet, and then so it's just going to give us an email response, it's going to give us actions for the team, and then it's going to create some notes. And then this bit here is a little bit interesting. So this is where I also wanted to assign to a member of the team. Now I don't know how you assign your workload in your team. For the sake of this, I've just done it randomly. So I've got a list of names here, really simple in my case. Let's move that out of the way. Just 4 names: Jeff, Bob, Sally, Nefwa. And I have asked this to just look up those names. So it's connected to that sheet. It's then obviously going to just aggregate it so that we don't have tons of bundles flying around. And then if we look at this variable, so I've got a set multiple variables here, and it's doing a few things. So it's going to assign a member. So how this is basically going to work, what this means, get first shuffle array, is it's going to take the array of all those names, that list. It's then going to shuffle those names at random. So let's say Bob comes out on top. Is Bob in the list? I think he is. It's then going to highlight the first name on that list, and then it's going to take the name. And so that's how we would get an assignee. Now you can do it. You can use other ways, much more complex than that. But that's what I've chosen to do. And then obviously I've just kind of converted the email to text, just because I want to add it to the CRM, and then same process. The rest is kind of as is. Oh, I should probably add, I've done a few other things as well. I've just formatted the date as well. So the date of the email, I've given it a bit of formatting, and the due date as well. Now, something I missed actually down here, well, it wasn't relevant for existing. For creating a new ticket, you're going to have to do a lot more. You're going to add a lot more to the system. So if I just open up the update row, obviously the task name and the ticket number have already created. The task name, it was done over here. Yeah, it was added there, and then same as the ticket number was generated. It's going to obviously update the actions. It's going to add the draft email. The reason we're using it from here is because in the other format, it just has the HTML format, which obviously we don't want to look at in our CRM. We're then going to assign. We're then going to take the assigned member, which has been picked at random. We're going to add the due date, and I have added what I forgot to mention in this column here. I've chosen the due date to be just based on what makes sense to you, 3 days from now. So let's say the standard kind of handle time, or your SLA is 3 working days, 72 hours, out of 3. So if you wanted that to be a week, you would change that to a 7. If you wanted it to be 24 hours, you kind of get the point. Same day, 0. Okay, and then what else we've got? Original message, subject, and then the text, and then date of email. Yeah, okay, so the rest is kind of, fairly obvious. And so that's how it would update all the information. Now, presumably, once you get an email from your inbox into your CRM, you would then handle everything from your CRM, and you can send emails from your CRM. But just in case you want to go back to your inbox, so at that point you can probably unlink that there and delete the rest of that, or at least delete this one. But just in case you want it to send a draft to your draft folder, it will do that. It will do that for all of these scenarios. And that is how we get these kind of, beautifully formatted drafted messages here. So that is pretty much how it works in a nutshell. Hopefully that makes sense. Any questions, do let me know. I know I haven't gone into like absolute detail about how do you set all this up. This isn't kind of a make.com 101 type session. So if you have familiarity with obviously kind of building automation, all this should make sense. But yeah, okay. And there we have it. So that's the video. Thank you so much for, if you're still watching, thank you so much for watching, and hopefully you found value out of that. Do let me know. This channel is going to be dedicated to just trying to solve business problems. I think my focus is more on just getting the problem in front of me, thinking, okay, how do we fix this problem and just really make life easier for the customer, the client, rather than being obsessive about the platform or the software or the technology, which I just see as a means to a greater end. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.